What is going on, guys and girls? It is your guy, Beefman18, and welcome to a little video we're gonna do really quick before we begin. As you probably can see by the shirt I'm wearing, we're not gonna be talking hockey today. This channel I changed it a couple of months ago, and I said, you know what, this channel is gonna be based on hockey only. But as we wind down the baseball season, and as I did a series for baseball, I said, let's bring back in a little bit of more baseball, but this time instead of reaction videos, due to time constraints, due to a lot of timing issues, we're gonna do baseball discussion based videos only for baseball. That's it. We're not gonna do reactions. We're gonna react to recaps live, but we're not gonna go into you know whatever it is. So we're going to talk about today. The season is winding down. We have seen a lot of crazy turnarounds this season right now as we're winding down the end of September and beginning and to October. There is a lot to talk about, and I think as we get through what's been going on this season, the fans being back in the stands since COVID hit, baseball being back full time to fans, this is something to be happy about because we didn't have this at all. That we had minimum fans in the stands at all um, last season due to COVID-19. But now that baseball has gotten back to its format of 162 games, um, best and their playoff formats are the same as always as they always have been. We're going to talk about we're going to go strictly into each league, and we're not going to go into what we're going to go into each league like the Central, the East, the West, the and same for the American League. But we're going to discuss a few, and the wild card chase in the American League is so close right now. We're going to look at that very closely. Um, So let's get started with the National League. We're going to start talking about the National League Central, and as we all can see right here, as I'm looking at my screen, the Milwaukee Brewers have a 9.5 game lead over the Cardinals for the top playoff spot in the NL Central. Now of course, because of Milwaukee is a good team. I mean, they've got a lot of star power players. They've got good pitching. But what happened in the end last season when they got knocked out and the wild card by the Dodgers? You know, you're looking at a team that just took matters into their own hands, and they went off and won games. And to be a big clue of that, you don't know what to expect because Mil- Milwaukee is one of those knockout teams where you're just like, they've won the Central 2018. They made it to the NLCS that year. They lost to the Dodgers. 2019, they lost to Washington in the wild card game. 2020, lost to the Dodgers. And 2021, hopefully, they're going to no doubt win the Central in the National League. But, as we talk about this, their postseason run is not going to go so deep, and the reason why is they're not equipped enough. I mean, they've got Josh Hader, they got Brandon Woodruff, they got a lot of good players, but what's going to happen when they go down the list and you look at the top tier, and the top tier rolls down to at least a few more players? Of course, they have Colt Wong, the former Cardinal. They have Willie Adames, Vogelback, and then look at Christian Yelich. I mean, he's having a heck of a year. So let's take a look at let's just take a quick look, guys, at Christian Yelich's stats this season. Not so good. Batting averages 247 with only 8 home runs. I'm going to mark both on the home runs and the RBIs, but this is something that he has done so far. He won NL League MVP a couple years ago. He went playing off and he did really well, especially at the end of the year. But, Milwaukee is not going to have a good chance in the National League to get down to. They're going to at least go to the division series. They're going to go to the division series, and whoever plays in the wild card is going to be, or it might be the Braves who play them. And we'll get into the Braves in just a little bit. But this is not to be sugarcoated about, because the Brew Crew, they are a good team. They're a good team. They're ready to go. I think once you consider what's been going on throughout this momentum, we're looking at teams that are ready to go. So as we get going, I just want to mention before we move on to the Cardinals that the Brew Crew have not won a World Series. They have not done particularly well in the postseason, but we'll see what happens. I'm predicting them to go to the NLDS and lose that in 4 or 5 games, maybe in a sweep. But let's move on. Let's move on to the St. Louis Cardinals. This Cardinal team was hit with a big trade, and we saw this in the offseason. Nolan Arenado got traded from Colorado to St. Louis, and he said clearly in a press conference and to a lot of people that he hated Colorado. He just didn't get along with management, and I followed his story throughout when the trade was posted, and my thought was when he would get here to St. Louis that there will be a lot of issues. Because he'd have to mesh with new players. He'd have to mesh with Paul Goldschmidt, Tommy Edman, Paul DeYoung, Tyler O'Neill, Harrison Bader, Dylan Carlson, all those players. And that is just and he meshed in so quickly with them that he ended up being a stepping stone for them that got to where they want to be. And I'm telling you guys, the one thing that really strikes me, especially when you can consider Nolan Arenado, is how he handled getting over being at Colorado for many years to being with a new team, with a new manager, with a new staff and all that. Staff meaning pitching staff, but and coaching staff as well. We can't forget about that. But we're looking at a team that is not. We're looking at him, but listen. I just want to bring him out for a minute because that trade really sparked things up for the Cardinals. The Cardinals were not supposed to make the playoffs this year, and I told so many people. Even I told a lot of people, and I say, what? The Cardinals aren't going to make it this far with the new addition. And I'm not being insulting or anything. But what I'm saying is, the Cardinals need to. They've won 10 straight games this month, and there are 4 games they are in contention for second spot in the wild card, and they have not made the wild card since they've not had a wild card bid since 2012. What I mean by that is they meaning that they've made the wild card. I mean, they made it in 2020 automatically because of the playoff format. But in my meaning, they had the 2020, 2012 when they went to the NLCS, but they lost to the Giants in 7 games. But let's not bring that up. So when I was watching the Cardinals this season, I was very surprised by what would happen with Nolan Arenado, like I said before, and everybody else meshing in. A lot of things happened to the Cardinals this season, and the disappointing thing was injuries. I mean, you consider Jack Flaherty being out for most of the season with the injury, and what really made me mad was he just didn't. It was just hard. Flaherty had a big injury. He was out for most of the season, and he's injured right now for 10. He's on the 10-day injured list. But the one thing that really doesn't make me feel good about Flaherty was he only had like 9 wins, 2 losses. He had a good ERA, but he got really hurt, and like not he did not ACL tear or nothing like that. He just got hurt. And how would the Cardinals respond from a lot of adversity from that point of view? And they're saying, the Cardinals go from point A to where they lose Flaherty, to point B point A where they have Arenado, point B where they lose Flaherty and Kwang Kong Kim with injuries. The Cardinals were struggling and were in third place in the NL Central in August. And I think, and what are we talking about when the Cardinals are that good? Especially, they're not really good when it comes to pitching. Their pitching in most games were pretty bad considering, like how wacky this would be. But now, since we're positively saying the Cardinals are in the wild card, now we're saying the Cardinals are going to get there and they're going to be able to play the game. But my point of view for the Cardinals is they're not going to go far. And you might ask me, being a Cardinal fan for many years, why? And the reason behind that, guys, is because the Cardinals have been struggling so far this season that towards the All-Star break, they were struggling. And when they faced a lot of teams like they had, and let's look back at the schedule in July, because that really sparked up a question here. They had to get past losing almost half their games all month. They got swept by they were able to do what they were supposed to do, but they had the chance to get to where they want to be. They got swept by Detroit, one of the smart teams. Chicago, obviously an in-state rival. Cincinnati was a tough team for them this season, and watching on day 3 of the MLB season how bad they got beat by the Reds, and how bad they were able to and how bad the pitching was that day. I kept watching it because I was still doing a baseball reactional series for you all, but after consideration and after thinking about it, the postseason has so many issues going on right now that you have no idea. And I'm kind of upset because the Cardinals weren't going to make it that far, and well, here they are right now, and I'm surprised. So let's take a look. So here's my prediction for the Cardinals. Before we move on to the NL East and the Atlanta Braves. The Cardinals are not going to win the wild card game, and like I answered the question before, and like I said a couple minutes ago, they're not going to be able to play against the Dodgers, and they're not going to be able to swing those bats at a higher level. The Dodgers have good pitching with Clayton Kershaw. We'll talk about the Dodgers in just a little bit, but the Cardinals need to get back. If the Cardinals want to get past the Dodgers, and I don't think they will, but if the Cardinals want to get there, they got to play hard, play solid baseball for the last few weeks of the season, and get their pitching, get their batting, get their everything going back to where it was at the beginning of the year, to the exact standard to where it was at the beginning of the year. All right, let's move on to the Atlanta Braves in the NL East. They are 79 and 70 with a lead to overcome, because the Braves, I didn't watch them all year because I'm not much of a Braves guy, but looking at their team and their schedule, how the Braves are really going to be able to get back to. They lost Acuna Jr. to a season-ending injury, and that is a big loss for the Reds. I mean, for the Braves, excuse me. That was a big loss for the Braves. He got lost with an ACL tear, and 24 home runs, 52 RBIs, and he got injured. And what am I? And Acuna Jr. has been so good throughout this season with an ACL, and an ACL tear is not easy easy, easy to heal. But the thing that really doesn't surprise me at all is that the Braves, after losing Ronald Acuna Jr. to that injury, they had to get good players to get back on their feet. Like they had to get Rosario, I think, from the Twins, and they had to get Peterson from the Cubs. Duvall's still there. Joey's still there. They have all their old players from last season, except Ozuna. But I don't think the Braves. You're considering a Braves team that struggled with 79 wins and just 70 losses and a 3-game lead over over the Phillies. And we'll talk about the Phillies in just a little bit. But I think this is so disappointing when you consider what happened. Like, what's the point? Like, what are we talking about tonight when we're talking about the Braves? They're I have not watched them all season because they're not my team, And I must admit to you guys, the Braves aren't really that strong-willed enough to get past an NLDS. They went to the NLCS last year. They lost to the Dodgers in 7 games, and I think, and we heard Joe Buck and John Smoltz talk about last season, how the Braves were so tight knit with their playing crew, and their pitching staff was so on point when they won those games in the NLCS. And I think we're looking at teams that are ready to go. But this Braves team, 3-game lead over the Phillies, and they're not going to get past at all. I think if the Braves keep winning, they're going to get by the Phillies by a graceful pack. But we're looking at how do they match up with teams in the playoffs today, and this is what it is. And we're gonna have predictions. This is what it is. This is how it feels when a team like this just struggles. We're talking teams that don't give a that they don't give a darn about whatever happens to them. It's all about the Braves trying to get better. But I have the Braves losing in the NLDS in a sweep to whoever plays them. Unfortunately, that's just how I feel about them. I mean, I'm not sad that they're in the postseason, but I'm surprised that this is how it went down. And I think right now, as we get towards the end of it, I mean, there is a hell of a lot to consider. They had to get back from up top. Well, let's just move on right now. Let's move on to the Philadelphia Phillies. They are 3 games back of the Phillies, like I talked about earlier. They're playing the Baltimore Orioles right now, and so we're gonna look at the Phillies right now. They are about to get even. They are 77 and 74, 3 games behind the Braves for the top spot in the NL East, and the slim chance of that happening for the Phillies. I mean, they have Bryce Harper. I mean, they got Bryce in 2019 from the Nationals, and he signed for 10 years for over $300 million. So what is the big difference right now? Because the Phillies don't have enough points. I mean, you're considering the Braves being a top notcher, and you're just saying to them, what in the, like, what are we doing? Like, what's the big point of this if we're trying to get back to the exact point? You know, I'm praying that something happens to each of those, because we're looking at teams that are ready to go, and we're just, the Phillies aren't even there yet. Only winning 2 World Series, not making the postseason after many years of making the postseason. And what's the new addition? There's a lot to talk about. The Braves, the Phillies are a lot more easier to contend with because they got Didi from the Yankees. They got Bryce Harper from the Nationals, like I talked about. They got McCutchen. They got Joyce. They got Jankowski. They got Brad Miller from the Cardinals. They got Luke Williams, Gene Segura, probably playing first base. They got pitching wise, Neris, Noah, Suarez, all those great players. But I think surprising, I'm not too surprised about the Phillies being 3 games behind the Braves, with Girardi behind the dish for managing. But I think, what's the point if they're going to be playing well on both ends of the field, and they're just playing straight up smash mouth baseball? We're looking at pitches. We're looking at all those guys talking about it today, and as we, like I talk about, there's a lot of key factors, but the Phillies don't have those key factors yet. If the Phillies do make the postseason, I don't know if they will or not. Sweep. They're gonna get swept. So let's move on to the National League West. We're going to talk about the 2 top teams that have already made the playoffs already, and they've already clinched a spot. The San Francisco Giants. We're going to talk about them first, and then we're going to talk about the Dodgers, the defending champions. So right now, I am surprised that the Giants are the top seed in the NL West. And I am not a Giants fan. I've always hated the Giants. Not because they have knocked off the Cardinals 2 years, 2012 in 7, when the Giants came back 3-1, and in 2014 when Ishikawa hit the walk-off against the Cardinals in Game 5. But, the Giants are a good team. They got Chris Bryant from the Cubs. They got Buster Posey still from the championship team. They've got Brandon Bell also. Wilmer Flores, Tony Estella, Solano, Longoria. No, they got Longoria from the Rays. Brandon Crawford, Chris Bryant, Slater and Yastrzemski and Duggar Lamonte Wade Jr. Ruff. They still have Madison. They don't have Madison Montgomery. They have Kevin Gossman, Dominic Leone. And Alex Wood from the Dodgers. Watson, Rogers. Jose Quintana. But I don't consider them a favorite. The Giants I was expecting them to be the bottom of the league in wins, and they're not going to make the postseason. I was expecting it to be Dodgers Padres in the NL West, but the Dodgers have already clinched. We're going to get into them in just a minute, but the Giants, there's not much to say because they're a surprising crew. They beat off, from the beginning of the year, the Giants lost their opener to the Mariners, and then they kept on winning. They kept on winning and winning and winning under new management, new coaching, And I think that is something to be looking at. And what's the surprise when the Giants come out to be the top dog in the NL West, and it pisses me off more than anything. Excuse my language, guys. I'm kind of surprised. Um, it even makes me mad because it's like, they're not supposed to be here in the postseason, but they're here, and they've clinched. So what are we talking about tonight when we're saying the Giants this, the Giants that, the Giants are going to do this in the postseason, the Giants are going to go all the way? No. The Giants have no chance of winning the World Series. They have no chance of going past the NLDS if they face the Dodgers. I mean, but we're looking at, they were able to beat off all those NL West teams, and they went off to win 2-1 in the cross-state rivalry, Oakland and San Francisco, in late June. But you come back again, you face the Athletics again, and they win 2-1 again in late August. And then after that happens, you just don't know what to do about it. The Giants are too, they're really too strong enough to play off, and they're ready to play good. But how are they going to get past a Dodger? How are they going to get past the defending champions in the NLDS? How are they going to get past the, if an upset happens, if the Cardinals surprisingly beat the Dodgers, but we're not there yet. But I just don't wish that to happen in my life. So, with all that going on, let's move on to the Dodgers, defending champions of Major League Baseball. They are a good team, and the Dodgers today, look at how far they've come. The Dodgers, after going back to where they were, defending champions, beating the Rays in 6 games. They were top until the Giants knocked them down. But I believe in my mind, the Dodgers, with their same line of players that they did have last year, like they had Walker Buehler, Jansen, Kelly, Kershaw, Knebel, David Price. They added Max Scherzer from the Nationals at the trade deadline. They added Trey Turner at the trade deadline as well. They added Pujols from the Angels. They added and they had their old roster intact like they did last year. But what's the point when the Dodgers are second in the NL West and clinch the wild card spot already? When I just don't get it. I just don't get it at all, guys. We're looking at the Dodgers being a top contender in the major leagues for a long time from now. The Dodgers made a big shift in last season when they were down 3 games against the Braves in the NLCS, and I heard Joe Buck and John Smoltz talk about that as well. The Dodgers fought a lot of pain in that series. Not injury pain. They lost 3 games from that series. 3. How does that consider the Dodgers just spooking off into the distance, coming back, winning Game 5, winning Game 6, winning Game 7 on that big home run by Bellinger in the 7th inning? They went on to win that. They went on to win the World Series against the Tampa Bay Rays, and then this season, they're not where they're supposed to be. I mean, they're in the wild card, but they're supposed to be division champs. That was why I said earlier about the Giants that the Giants weren't supposed to be in the postseason. And I think as we consider talking about them, looking at how good they've been so far, I tell you guys what, I will be so really damned if the Dodgers lose to the Cardinals. I would be absolutely mad if they did not have enough room to play on their depth. They were able to get back to playing the exact baseball they were exact to playing at both ends of the field. Pitching was so stellar in last season's postseason, and the Dodgers are going to do super well to win it again this year. That is my prediction. The Dodgers guaranteed winning back-to-back World Series, and this is going to go down the line, guys. We're looking at the Dodgers going back-to-back, and this is what it is. If the Dodgers spring forth a comeback, it's going to be good. You know, we're looking at that style of play. This is what it is right now. If they just look at it, I'm pretty surprised, but I'm just not looking at it. Okay, let's move on to the American League after a long Dodger discussion. So the first team, this is a surprise for me. Okay, before we get started in the American League, we're going to talk about 3 teams in the American League tonight because there is a tight spot in the wild card for 3 teams. But let's start with the Tampa Bay Rays, the defending AL champions in 2020, still with their same roster intact. I am a diehard Tampa Bay Rays fan. The Rays are so tight-knit good, and they are so ready to go. We're looking at the Rays doing it again, winning the American League pennant. They have all their pieces intact from last season. I mean, they had the same postseason roster, but they added Michael Walker from the card. They added Zunino. I mean, they have Zunino, they have Mejia, they have Choi, Diaz, Lau, all their players. They have the same outfield like they did last year. The Rays, they're winning 91 games this season, top in the AL East, and they've already clinched today. And I think the Rays are going to make it to the World Series, but we're going to keep discussing the Rays. The Rays are really good. I mean, how good can they be? They can be super good. And you talk about how good they were. I mean, hell, I can say that when the Rays got past the Astros in 2020, Brian Anderson was talking about it also. He said, and I'm kind of thinking on the top of my head, I think he said something about the Rays being a top contender. I think it was Ron Dowling or somebody from TBS. But, how surprised are we? The Rays are top again. They're on top again because their team is so stacked with the same exact players that they had last year, and they're ready to go for the postseason. Now, as we get started talking about how good this team is, we're saying we're saying the Rays play super well, tight-knit. They're playing super good offensively, good pitching, good defense. I actually watched an extra inning game from the Rays, which they won, I think, in 12 innings. And I think when I watched that game, I saw the Rays were able to get the exact production that they did in that game. and that game might have been against the Red Sox. It might have been on. I think it was on the road. Trying to think. I think it was on the road in extra innings, or in the ninth. I might be wrong here, but I think it might have been the 29th against the O's. No, it wasn't. It wasn't against the Orioles. I think it was against the Red Sox or the Yankees or something like that. Um, the Rays came. Oh yeah, it was this game. The crazy game ends. This game on September the 6th. The Rays. I mean, the Rays ended their big. They had the biggest win of the year. I mean, they're having a good year so far. I think the Rays are going to go far, but they're going to have to face the Dodgers again, and the Dodgers are going to beat them. The Rays are going to get back in the postseason, and once the Rays stay past that elimination, then you're considering a Tampa Bay team that's lined up with a lot of star power. And how do we consider the Rays being a top-notch contender when all that they've done is just play a lot of baseball? Played really good at it. I mean, who knows? Who knows? All right, guys, we're going to move on to another team in the NL East. Oh, wait, excuse me, in the AL East, the Boston Red Sox. Boston is tied. Boston has a 2.5 game lead. 2-game lead in the wild card. So they're going to get the first wild card spot. The Boston Red Sox, after losing, after a losing season last season, Boston wasn't supposed to be this good. I think Boston being as good as they are, I mean, looking at their roster, guys, I mean, they're batting. They have JD, they have Kyle Schwarber, they have Kike Hernandez. Yeah, they have Kike. Alex Verdugo and Hunter Renfroe. Jose Iglesias from the Angels. They have Xander Bogaerts, Travis Shaw, Devers or Arroyo, Bobby Dillek. They're pitching. They still have Chris Sale. They still have Evaldi from the championship team. In 2018, they still have Barnes, The Red Sox, I think, they weren't supposed to be here. But I'm thinking, why are the Red Sox going to be? How are the Red Sox going to get? How are the Red Sox going to handle facing either the Yankees or the Blue Jays in the wild card game? And I'll be looking very closely at that game. I'll be watching all American League postseason because it is on the networks of Fox and FS1. I have a big issue with TBS. No offense to TBS, I like their crew, but it's just my personal preference, guys. But let's get back to the Red Sox. The Red Sox are shaped to be a team that is ready to aim the wild card position, and once they're able to play that position, once they're able to get that, I'm going to get my other light on here just so you guys can see me a little bit better. The Red Sox, once they play to their measures, and once they're able to get back to the exact style of baseball, we're just looking at a team tonight that is ready to go on the defensive set of the ball, and I am surprised, and I'm willing to God that this is not something to take into consideration, because I talk about this a lot with people who I talk to, and they mostly base it on that the Red Sox have that team. But who does the team contend on when you're looking at, the Red Sox winning World Series? They broke the curse in '04. They broke the 95-year curse in 13. They also won it in '07. They won it in 18 against the Dodgers. But the Red Sox are going to probably lose in the wild card game. That is my prediction for the Red Sox, due to the fact that the Red Sox aren't playoff bound ready, even though they're in the wild card this year. So, let's move on to our second American League East team of the night, and we're going to be talking about our third team, but second in the wild card, the New York Yankees. Now, for the rest of the for the rest of the American League Central, before I continue, we're going to end the American League Central talking about the White Sox and the Astros after we're finished with the AL East. Not due to time constraints, just due to the big lead. But the New York Yankees, of course, they have their good star players with Judge, Stanton. They have good players on their team. The Yankees being a good mounted team like they always have been, I am looking at this team after they brought Joey Gallo from the Rangers in a trade. They're wild card bound, but and they also got Rizzo from the Cubs. They have Sanchez. They have all the good players. They have same pitching staff they had last year. They have Kluber. They have Garrett Cole, Aroldis Chapman, who's been there for a couple of years now, and all their good players. But the one thing that has brought the Yankees together is how good they've done. And I think once the Yankees have done what they've done, winning those games, securing the second wild card spot, but they're in a tight race, guys. We also have the Blue Jays talking about as well tonight. But right now, as we consider this, I think one thing to talk about is the depth and the impact that all of the MLB that the Yankees are going to have in the wild card game if they make it. And I'm saying if because we don't know if they're going to make it or not. Because Toronto is right behind them. So, let's look at the Yankees from a point of view that I think is right. The Yankees with Judge and all their power bats are going to be able to win the wild card if they do these three things. Number one, secure the wild card spot. I don't mean win the game. I mean secure it. Number one, they have to get their bats going offensively, and they have to stay alive on the pitching counts. Number two, their pitching has to be stellar and close out teams and games like they're supposed to, throwing that fastball, the curve, the changeup, all the pitches. And number three, their high-powered defense. And I can say the defense is going to be a lot easier to contend with. But we know this already. The top contender for that spot, I think, is going to have to reel down to a few more options. Like, what are we looking at here? How good are these teams? How good can it be once they anticipate each step flying from one, like I talked about with my 3 points with the Yankees, they're not going to be able to do that well. But if they play together and they play strong, then they'll be ready to go. All right. Next team is the Toronto Blue Jays. They're third place in the wild card. They're tied with the Yankees for that second spot, but they did lose to the Rays today, just as I talked about. The Blue Jays had a lot of big offseason moves, and we're going to deep dive into those right now. The Toronto Blue Jays, they added George Springer from the Astros. They added, um, I think they added Chris Davis, but I think he left. They added Dickerson, Lamb. They still have Gurriel Jr., Lourdes Gurriel, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Marcus Semien. They added from the Oakland A's, Bo Bichette, Kevin Smith, Denny Jansen, Romano, Richards, Ray. They have all their players. The Blue Jays, when they're considered a wild card favorite, and they're doing really well, I think the Blue Jays have a good chance to do it, but it depends on how the Yankees do. I don't have much to say about the Blue Jays because I don't follow the Blue Jays as much, but I'm a big George Springer fan. So I think once you take that into consideration, there's a lot of stuff to talk about with the Blue Jays. We're not going to get all of it in tonight, but if they make the wild card, same three consistencies, get their bats going, all that kind of stuff that I talk about with the Yankees. The three consistencies stands with the Blue Jays. If they get past the Red Sox, they're going to lose in the ALDS. In at least 4. The Yankees, I forgot to say, I think in 4. The White Sox are running away with the AL East. After a big change with the White Sox being as much as they are tonight, the White Sox being a powerhouse team, I mean, they have a good pitching staff. They have Craig Kimbrell, one of my favorite pitchers because he has that cool arm thing he does. Dallas Keuchel from the Astros. Yasmani Grandal. They have Anderson, the best shortstop in the American League. Billy Hamilton, Brian Goodwin, Luis Robert, Angel Jimenez. The White Sox are good. I mean, they're really good. They're really a surprising team after what they had to go through many years in the postseason, not making it. But they're really, really good. And I think once that piles together, you're looking at a strong team. Plays together, plays hard, plays athletically, and they're able to get back to playing the exact same baseball that they were doing every time in the spectrum. Now, if they clinch, they're going to be in the ALDS. If they win that ALDS against either the Red Sox, the Yankees, or the Blue Jays, they're going to lose to the Rays in the ALCS. Now, that could depend on what happens if they do either face a wild card team or if they do face a division winner. But all that we do know is that they're going to be able to play hard. I am a White Sox guy because of Tim Anderson. But there's a lot to talk about with them. So as we wrap up tonight, one more team, the Astros. The Houston Astros aren't my favorite anymore because they've broken up into little tiny pieces. Not saying that like they're broke. My favorite players are leaving. Carlos Correa has announced that he's leaving after this season is over. But I think the Astros, they still have my favorite player, DH Alvarez. They still have Correa, Bregman, Altuve, and Gurriel, Castro. They have all the good players. I think McCullers Jr., Martinez, Javier, Josh James, Greinke. Once that comes into play, I think the Yankees are going to be hard to beat. The Astros are going to be hard to beat. But if they do make it past the White Sox, and sorry for cutting it short, guys, I'm just time constraining it. If the Astros lose to the White Sox, the end result is you're looking at just hard power teams. All right, so let's talk about that tonight. We're looking at just how it is. So, Astros going to lose in this series in the ALDS. Thank you all for watching today. Stay tuned for postseason reaction videos coming to you. Time will make a difference. If you guys have any questions, drop them below, and I'll see you guys in October for the AL wildcard game. Peace.